I had the pleasure of speaking at a invite-only party before the Super Bowl.
Okay.
And about 150 who's who people that my friend Jim Edgeworth invited, and he hosts this party. And one of the questions was, and myself, I was speaking, and also Special Forces Captain Ben Harrow, and he's a wounded veteran, lost both his legs. He has a great story. He'd be great to be on your show too, by the way.
Okay.
Do that remotely, obviously. But somebody asked a question. You said, okay, what? These very wealthy people, very influential people. What fund do you recommend? Wounded Warrior Fund, or this fund, or Folds of Honor? And I said, listen, you absolutely should write a check to one of these funds. You figure out which one.
Right.
Okay. But more than that, you should find a veteran and bring them into your business. And the gentleman said, he goes, well, I have a law firm. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, find a veteran, send this person to law school. Guess what? That'd be your best attorney you've ever had.
Yeah.
And I think that's where businesses today miss the opportunity, right? Obviously, if you're, if you're a Fortune 50 company and you can afford to have a former general officer on your staff to, make 600 grand or $1 million to be some type of advisor, that's a great thing because it ups your
it's like your street credit.
Your street credit,
right?
Which is fine. But I think we miss the opportunity of bringing veterans in, and I think a lot of times you're right. Veterans, number one, undervalue themselves, right? Because we're in a selfless service business.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
We're in a selfless service business, so we undervalue ourselves.
Yep.
Right? We're all in it together. We all want to come home and see our families, raise our children, have a great life. But then when we come to the civilian sector, we undervalue it. And I think it's important to continue to understand where your value is. I have a mentor that helps me with that too. John Maloney, he helps me with that. Richard Parker, Tom Power, Kevin Weeks, my daughter, my oldest daughter, Mara Spisso DeCapito. She, continues to remind me. They all continue to remind me, like, you have this value. This is what you bring. But it's hard for us to put money to that value because, again, we're in a business. You started in the Air Force how old?
17.
17. I started in the Army when I was 18.
Yep.
Okay, I thought I was going to stay in for 4 years, get out and go to college, right? That was my plan, be a high school teacher.
Yeah.
Okay? And 26 years later, it worked out for me. So we continue in this selfless service business. And yes, we've been fortunate, you and I, to be promoted, right? Great, do great things. But we also, helped others to be promoted,
yes,
right?
We did.
As quick as possible. We wanted people to get promoted, to do well. And, obviously being in special operations and working at West Point, teaching OCS, like I picked up so many life skills and, I try to empower those back to people. But, veterans have, let's back up, post World War II, okay, post World War II, we had the most veterans ever. We have a lot now, but we had the most veterans ever. And that group became the entrepreneurs that helped build this country great. If you want to talk about the Industrial Revolution, post-World War II is when these veterans came out and built businesses, trucking, mining, buildings. Veterans came out with skills, leadership skills, and they started building these businesses, and they worked together for it. Right? And I think now you look at we've had the most combat veterans now since World War II, post 9/11. And that's the same thing these veterans need to continue to do. They need to continue to help each other and promote each other and do veteran-owned businesses, but put it in an aspect where you don't have to come from a certain group. You don't have to be a graduate of the Air Force Academy or West Point. And if you are, that's wonderful. But if you're not, you still can. I find a lot of things through West Point graduates that have helped me. Graduates that, Nate Hunterton, Sean Cooney, Hank Kersey, Greg Wade. All these guys are West Point graduates. Some stayed in for a career, some didn't. but they continue to find you opportunities, right? Because they're like, oh,
That's the way they think.
I'm sorry?
It's the way they think.
It's the way they think. And so I think when business people ask me, what can I do? I said, that's what you do. Find a veteran. Man, woman, soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guardsman, bring that person into your group, send them to college if they need it,
Right.
and put them in your business, and you'll be pleasantly surprised of how they do.
How they turn out.
Ooh, exactly.
So JB, that's fire, right? So we should start.
Okay,
right.
good.
So, how you doing, everybody? I'm here with JB Spisso, and so this is the most awesome opportunity that just came out of nowhere within the last week?
Okay. Week, 14 days maybe. So
Yeah, so let me not ruin the intro, but I will tell you this for those who don't know, right? Everybody knows I am a retired chief. We also have a retired sergeant major, and we are not going to go back and forth and see which branch has the smartest, because I'm not. This guy, he's going to tell you his story, but thank you for tuning in, and JB, thank you for allowing me to meet you and do this. And shoot, we got so much stuff covered, and before that, this will be the first one we do that I'm going to probably leave a majority of it. It's just fire. But
Great.
please
Awesome.
please tell everybody about you and what you do, and the floor is yours.
Well, great. I'm JB Spisso. I'm a retired Army Sergeant Major. I'm a performance coach and consultant. Consider myself, an energy and victory consultant to help people move forward. I retired from the military after 26 years. I jumped out of plenty of Air Force airplanes back in the day, so we have a lot of common ground. Though the services battle against each other from time to time, and even sometimes on the gridiron, of course, Army, Navy, Army, Air Force. When we've come together on the battlefield, we've always come together,
and we win.
So I'm glad to be here. Thank you for taking your time. I started this leadership business about 2005. I was still in the military, working at West Point, and the New York Rangers came up for a camp at West Point, and Coach Riley, one of the legendary coaches at West Point, hockey coach, said, "Hey, the Rangers want to do something. Go see the coach." And I went to meet Tom Rennie and Glenn Sather, who's a Hockey Hall of Famer. He was a GM, and we did this outdoor team building. I got all the Bubbas together, and we ran the Rangers through this team building event in the mud, in the dark, at night, and I funnily, I kind of comically say how we didn't get anybody killed. It was a miracle, but we were learning how we were doing. But the Rangers found a way to build this team chemistry, and then they made the playoffs, and the rest is history. But Glenn Sather and Tom Rennie, and several other players. Kevin Weeks was on that team. Henrik Lundqvist was on that team. Michael Nylander on that team. A lot of very senior and very influential people. They all looked at me, and Glenn Sather sat me down and said, "Hey, you're pretty good at this." And I looked at him a little bit. I'm like, "Pretty good at what?" And he's like, "This leadership." He's like, "I watch how people look at you. You should think about doing this." And so I always tell people in the business community, when you see a veteran, you recognize something in them, tell them.
Yeah.
Right? Tell them. Say, I see what you can do. And then it started from there. 2005. Right. And I dabbled in it for 5 years until I retired, just part-time. And then in 2010, I've done it full-time ever since. So, from this, I've cultivated a leadership consulting business. I help people with culture. I help people with their teamwork, and I help people with their leadership.
Right.
And I found that a lot of companies, they have this gap. They have this gap in this, what I like to call the mid-level management. It's not the right thing, but in our term in the military, the lieutenant captain, the staff sergeant first class, E6, E7. There's in the military we train all of that.
Right.
And sometimes in business they miss that gap, and it's kind of like survival of the fittest, and then who makes it to the C-suite good. But what happens is you weed out a lot of these very talented individuals that if you were to just give them a little bit of training, a little bit of mentorship, a little bit of leadership, help them with communication, they would get there. And so fortunately, there are businesses that identify that, and they say, that's a need we can help. Sure, I'm always willing to help the senior executives. I love doing that as well too. But there's a gap there that I feel, and I can help them, become successful.
Okay.
So that's it. So that's where we're at right now, and I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Man, this is awesome. So you touched on a few things, and I can relate. And I think that the audience, especially because there's going to be civilian leaders watching, veterans.
Sure.
Oftentimes, chief, sergeant major can be considered invincible, untouchable. Like
Sure.
we move mountains, right? But then a civilian leader says, you're really good at something. And it's so ingrained for us to just be servant leaders.
Correct.
We don't believe it.
Right.
So how hesitant were you, if you were, and how much help did you end up needing to push you beyond that disbelief? Because I know I've been told that. So, I wanted to start doing consulting, and a lot of it was like, hey, you're really good at this stuff. And I'm like, I am. I'm like, because I think we just do stuff because it's ingrained us to do it versus it's something that's very valued out there. So how did you overcome that? Or did you feel that like, I am that good? And how did you move forward? Because you obviously moved forward.
Sure.
And you're doing good things.
Wonderful question, Kev. And here's the thing is that I think it goes back to, the military, we are so good at mentorship. It's so good at mentorship of others in the civilian world. And when we pick up something new, we have to find mentors, right? And I've been fortunate to have, and I named a few before, Tom Power and Kevin Weeks and John Maloney and Richard Parker, and people that have helped me in this business process.
Right.
So, reach out and say, hey, help me refine what I'm good at. Like I have a niche.
Got it.
Right? I have a niche, and there's other people out there that do leadership consulting, and so in February I was a keynote speaker at a company seminar in DC, and I found out it came down between me and Jocko Willenick, who's famous and doing well for himself and has books and podcasts and everything else. And they called me. They said, "How are you different from Jocko?" I said, "Listen, if you want Jocko, hire him."
Yeah. Right.
I'm not Jocko, right? Everything for me is not a firefight. What he says is outstanding, but what I say is outstanding too. So you have to find what fits your organization. So I think a lot of times veterans, we try to be like other people, and then I just say, be yourself, because your niche will fall. And I ended up getting the gig because I stay true to who I am and what I do. And so that's what veterans also need to do. They need to stay true to who you are. Find out what works for you. We talk about leadership and leadership attributes. I'm a cheerleader. It works for me, but it's authentic.
Right.
So if it's not authentic for you, then don't be it. A lot of coaches, I work with a lot of professional coaches, a lot of college coaches, and sure, everybody wants to have the winning record of a Bill Belichick, right? But not everybody's Bill Belichick. Not everybody has that style, but be your own style.
And be you.
Right. I mean, you look at Tampa Bay Lightning just won a Stanley Cup. Their head coach John Cooper, he was an attorney, right? So he never played professional hockey. It's okay,
right.
But you can surround the staff around you that maybe has more of that. More of that experience he did with Todd Richards, who played in the league and was a head coach and that sort of thing. And now he's a Stanley Cup champion.
Right.
So those are things that I continue to try to tell people. Find a niche that works for you, be authentic at it, have a passion in it, and enjoy it. Did I answer the question?
No, you
there?
did.
Yeah.
You did. And it's funny. So I read something today, right? And it was because the Air Force was changing a standard. And it seems like for some of us older folk,
Sure.
that standard is being moved the wrong way.
Okay.
More lax. And it was interesting. I read a comment from an older chief, and it said, "There's really no such thing as real leadership now. They value popularity, because leadership also means being candid and honest, And there are a lot of leaders who are very good at highlighting a Simon Sinek or Maxwell quote
Sure.
and regurgitating it like it's theirs. And then it's like, but do you have any original thought? Or right? So how do you balance that, right? Because I think it's absolutely, you need to be positive, you need to be a cheerleader, but you also have to be honest, especially with the culture today. Because there's a lot of folks that I really believe that they need more honesty than fallacies, because when the truth hits, then they don't know what to do. And I don't know if you run into that.
No, I think that's great. You know, I did a seminar for a big company, and the CFO, her name was Judy Farcasera, who's a friend of mine.
Okay.
And after the seminar, I asked for candid feedback, and she waited a couple of days, and she sent me an email, and she gave me some real candid feedback.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. and most of it was very good.
Right.
But she was like, this is where you can improve. And I was like, wow. I called her and I was like, thank you. Right? And some people might be like, oh, who are you? Like, no, I value that feedback because we want to be good. And I think sometimes, you know, when you were in the military, and I was too, sometimes, you know, the leader would say, spray yourself with Teflon, right? You're gonna get your butt chewed now and then. And I think sometimes that you know, we forget that's a part of it. And I think today, and I'll say this as gently as I can, I think people are trying to be they're trying to be on the right side of the narrative instead of doing what's right.
Right.
Like somebody had asked me, like, where do you stand on this? And I was like, I stand for for doing right. And I think that's what we have to do. And if you think about that as a leader, now, sometimes leadership, and I tell this to a lot of executives, it's a lonely place. It is. Right. Sometimes leadership is a lonely place. You're making very, very difficult decisions at times. And you know, financial decisions, obviously there's people involved. And you're making difficult decisions, but sometimes those decisions, you know, have to be made. I, you know, worked for a professional sports team. I saw it, and sometimes, you know, athletes feel like they're a commodity, and sometimes they are. But sometimes decisions are made because the organization wants to continue to move forward, and you're letting somebody go that's been an integral part of the organization, right? I mean, how do you think the New York Rangers just felt letting Henrik Lundqvist go? He's going to be a Hall of Famer, you know. But you know, they bought him out of his contract. It was time to move on. It's probably difficult for him as the athlete, and it's difficult for the organization because he's given so much. But sometimes it's a decision that the leadership has to make, right? And sometimes you want to put a right or wrong on it. Like you want to take a vote. Was this right? Was this wrong? You can make an argument for both. Yeah. But and sometimes that's just what the organization has to make. And I think sometimes that, you know, we forget that. So I do agree with you that you know, leadership is not a popularity contest. Of course leaders want to be liked, right? They want to be liked. But they should be more respected than anything else. Right.
Don't be popular by trying to cater to lesser standards.
Well, and what happens is then when you and I say this a lot in my leadership seminars, wavering standards are no standards. Right. So that's it. So if you feel the standard, set the standard wherever you want. But as soon as you waver from that, there's none. It's zero.
And I asked that because you wrote a book.
I did.
Right. So here it is, right? Well,
here it is.
Things say it, if you right?
Right.
Warrior leadership, right? So how much of this, and then the curveball question that that I just say, hey, I saw it today.
Yeah.
How much of that is written in there? Or what drove, right? A lot of what you said, what I've asked, how much of that is covered?
Sure, a lot of it. And I think what I've also done, and again, I had a wonderful editor that helped me with this, Karen Cantrell. She was recommended to me from another veteran who's a lot smarter than me, that has written 4 books, Steve Schwab. Thank you, Steve. And it's so funny because, you know, my book started about, my initial draft was about 350 pages. And she said, you know what, we need to make this a 2-hour read. We need to make this so a business person can read it on an airplane in 2 hours and get something out of it. And every chapter, and you'll like this, every chapter there's 3 takeaways. So even if you're not sure what the chapter, like you can, every chapter,
I like it.
We have 3 takeaways. So you can tab it, you can hand it to somebody else in your organization, and you can continue to be successful.
That's brilliant.
So it was all her idea, and I listened to her, and it was great. And she's like, "Look, this is your book. We can go any way you want." But again, I said, "No, you're the expert." And every one of her changes she made, I accepted, because that's how we get better, right? That's how we, that's how we improve. And I think sometimes, especially us, we're at the highest positions possible in the military for our ranks, and we forget that it's okay to listen to others. It's okay to take others' advice. I have a young man assisting me right now. His name's Ryan Carmichael.
Okay.
He's a hockey player. He's at University of Notre Dame. He's 21 years old, and he is uber bright. This kid, every time last night we were on the phone for 30 minutes, I took 2 pages of notes, right? And he was, and he was like, he said to me, he's like, I can't believe it. Every time we talk, we take notes. I said, yeah, because you're brilliant, and I'm learning.
Right.
And as much as he's learning from me, I'm learning from him.
Right.
And I think sometimes leadership, like, we forget that. It's a continual learning process, right? Like, you've seen the military change its way, right? So have I. It went from this to this to this to this to this to, and it might be going back again. And if you don't change with it, then usually you're not effective at it as long, right? So I think that's where we have to continue to be and understand. So
right,
yeah.
So I did want to ask you, right?
Sure.
So you took note. You actually brought notes, and I learned late in life that note taking is an art, because I would write everything down, and then when I went back to review it, I was like,
it's too much.
It's too much, right? So if you could name that tune in 30 seconds for anyone who is like, yeah, I need some hints. What is it that sticks out to you, like when you're taking these notes, like what is it that you're like, I need to know that? Is it just something that just you've never heard before, or something you have that you forgot?
Yeah. So what I do is I always try to hit high points. Okay. So I was on a call today and yesterday, and you can see my notes are kind of all over the place. But I go back and I emphasize what I'm trying to get through.
Okay.
For example, my friend John Maloney was talking about, like, you have an energy transfer to people. People lead differently with you. I write those things down. And where's it come? Then I wrote the phrase rising up. I have a presence, I have a command, I have a respect.
Got it.
Genuine. So yes, you can write everything down. You can take some high points. I write things down that stand out to me.
Yeah, it looks. When you read back to me, it read like almost like sharpening the saw type stuff.
Sure.
An almost reminder of the energies you have, the things that stand out, the things that are like, I communicate this already, but this is a different way to communicate it, or it's a reminder. And I think that's impressive because, again, like I said, later in life, it took me a long time to get there. And there are some younger guys, right? There's some younger airmen. Sure. Hopefully maybe we'll get some soldiers or stuff like that to watch. But I think that's an art form, and I think it's important to write these things down and keep it, because a lot of times when we start having that self-doubt, like we talked about at the beginning, like, man, like, can I be this? Because one of the things that I found later in the years, and so I was, went just over 28, and
wonderful.
And I was like, I never believed I was institutionalized, right? And I realized I was. You know what I mean? I mean, I joined when I was 17. Here I'm at 45,
sure.
And I was like, holy smokes, like, if I could go back in time, what would I have done different? And I don't know, I haven't found that answer. But one thing I do know is I wish that I would concurrently build something at the same time while I was serving that I could balance. Because that goes back to, like, you served 26 years and were you building this while you were serving? Or was it like, crap, I got an opportunity that led to an opportunity and I took the opportunity to do something with it? Because a lot of us, you said it yourself, we don't have a lot of faith or belief in ourselves a lot of time in what we bring to the fight outside the gates, and sometimes we'll pass up opportunities.
Sure. And we're a lot like athletes. Like, we are athletes. We just, the tools of the trade are different. You know, they might use a football or basketball or hockey stick or something else, and you know, we use a M4 carbine. But you know, when the military's done with us, they're done with us, right? And I know that, and not only, but you know, and I know we have these ACAP programs and everything else, but you know, transitioning out, it's like, okay, well, you know, we got to keep the, you know, somebody's got to fill your job, right? And you got to kind of move on. And I think that's a process that, again, you know, we need to continue as veterans to do that and support and help each other with all those things. I mean, there's plenty of things that, like, I thought I knew when I was retiring, I didn't know. And I look back and go, man, I screwed that up. I should have been ready here. I should have done more of this. I should have done my VA thing early. Like, all these points, but what do? We work for the last day, right? Because we do. We work for the last day. And I think that, you know, there needs to be, and I don't know how we do it, you know, the transition process to get a little smoother. But you know, I feel that the military is, you know, it's a great service. It's a great service to learn and grow. And I always said, you know, if I was president, I would, you know, I would encourage young people to have some type of service. Now, not as you know, the military is not right for everybody, either physically or mentally or that sort of thing. And I was a drill instructor, so some people just don't mesh with the military. But there's other ways that you can serve the country, whether it's, you know, Red Cross or some other things.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And I would always say that I'd encourage young people to serve their communities and their country first. And if they did, I would pay for the college if I was the president. I would be like, whatever college you get into, I pay. And I think that that's important because you learn a lot about a value system. We talked about selfless service, right? And maybe in the military we do take it to the other extreme, but we learn to be servant leaders. We take that leadership pyramid and we flip it upside down. Right? So we try to help everyone else learn and grow when you're the leader. And I think that's very, very valuable. Because companies, corporations, businesses, sports teams, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for culture. They're looking for competence. They know they can get talented people. They can get talented people by paying for it. But that doesn't equal success. Oh, it does if you have an amazing product, right? Well, okay, you know, you invented the iPhone, of course, you're going to have, it's good. It's going to equal success. But to build culture, to build chemistry, it can't be forced down. The organizational leaders have to ensure it's healthy. Okay, it's the right people, but it's here in the organization. You know, you've been in a platoon, right? You've been in the squadron. You understand it. So it's built here, and that's where the money should be spent. Now, I think the military does a wonderful job because every time we get promoted, what do? We go to some school, right? We go to some leadership school, and you know, you're like me. You're like, why am I at this leadership school? I know all this stuff, right?
Well, ours is a couple weeks. Sergeant Major's is like, what, 9 months?
Well, I went to the distance learning one, so I went to, so mine was good. I had to do 9 months online and 2 weeks there, which is great. But all the courses we go to, and you make E5, E6, E7, E8, right? You're going to all these courses. But what you realize is you're learning valuable skills that often aren't given to people of the same rank and stature in the civilian world. And so we talked about a little bit before, you know, that becomes survival of the fittest for people in the business world. And we're like, oh, you have to counsel somebody? That's not that hard. You know, Oreo cookie, good, bad, good. Wait, what? A manager said to me, wait, what? I'm like, okay, what's the problem? Well, I had this employee's, you know, showing up late 3 days in a row, 15 minutes. I was like, okay, is the employee a good employee? Yeah, he's good. Okay, so let's do something like this. Hey, Steve, you know what? I really appreciate what you're doing. Those last two programs we had, it was wonderful. You know, but I just want to bring up, like, you've been late like 15 minutes 3 days in a row. Is everything going okay? Oh, well, you know, I'm trying to get my kids off to school and everything. Okay, well, you know, but it kind of sets a tone for the whole company. So maybe you can tighten it up. Oh, yeah, no problem. But I want to remind you that thank you for all of you do. Good, bad, good. People were like, wow, how'd you learn that? I'm like, the military.
Yeah, it's like a sandwich.
It's a sandwich, right?
Yep.
But those are skills that we take for granted,
Right.
that other people look at as invaluable. And it doesn't matter where you go to college. You can graduate from Columbia, even from Stanford, from Yale, Harvard, West Point.
Right.
The academies teach that, but you can graduate from one of these universities and not have that skill. You have the knowledge, but you don't have that experience yet, and you have to put it into play. You know, what do we do in the military? We graduate a officer from one of our academies or from ROTC or OCS, and now they're in charge of a 30-person platoon,
right.
and they're building things. But what do we also do? We give that person a senior sergeant, and we give them to mentor them, and we give them squad leaders at every level,
right.
to help. Right, so we don't just throw them into the fire. We give them a support staff,
right,
to help that leader become successful.
Yep.
So
I agree. All right, so this one is always near and dear to my heart. This one's big, and I'm gonna kind of segue into it, right? So everybody, young folks, right? I'm like, I want to go buy that expensive car, right? And then I'm like, there's maintenance and there's insurance, and then it's like, oh.
right.
All right, so leadership.
Sure.
But I tell people, you cannot lead unless you know how to follow.
Mm-hmm.
But that followership is something that we don't talk about a lot. Not necessarily me or you. We understand it, right? But I see that in a lot of the folks out there, and it's kind of like the Debbie Downer of like I gotta follow. But I used to tell my folks, I'm like, the people out there getting it done are the biggest informal leaders to getting it done. Mm-hmm. More than the guys that sit at the table, mm-hmm. right? So what would you say when it comes to followership and how much that influenced you to become the leader that you've become?
Wonderful question. I think, we go back to, being the silent professional and
right.
and saying that I'm listening to what people say, and I'm understanding what people say, and I'm taking that all in. We're on the anniversary of Mogadishu, and Randy Shugart was in our sister platoon in 2nd Ranger Battalion, Bravo Company 2nd Ranger Battalion, and I always remember him before he went to be a Delta Force officer, and he was unfortunately killed in combat and awarded the Medal of Honor. But I always remember him as a staff sergeant, and he didn't talk a lot. But when he talked, we all stopped and listened to what he had to say, because it was so valuable. And so, being a great leader is being an outstanding listener.
Right.
Right? And taking that all in and understanding that people are trying to guide you. The thing I will say is when you're guiding and mentoring somebody, though, you shouldn't complete the picture. You should help them fill the pieces in, but that picture should be theirs.
Right. So you just build the border for them?
You build the border and you help them fill some of the pieces in.
Got it.
But I think sometimes I even saw it at West Point, and I remember one time the TAC officer and I, we had a discussion. When we were picking, our top cadet in our company, and he was like, "I like this person." I'm like, "Well, I like this person." He's like, and and I said, "Do you know why you like this person, sir?" And he's like, "No." I'm like, "Because he's a spitting image of you. He's exactly like you." But this person, and it was a female officer, cadet, Chrissy Andrews, who ended up, and I said, they're both going to be outstanding officers, but she's going to be the star. Why? She's different. And she was a MacArthur Award winner and everything else. Okay. And both were outstanding officers, but you have to let them be who they are. Right? You can't put them in a box. I remember I was doing consulting work for the Pittsburgh Penguins. We'll talk a little hockey here. And Tony Granato, who's the coach of the Wisconsin Badgers now, Hockey Hall of Famer, USA Hockey Hall of Famer. Granato family's well known. And we were in the meeting room, and he was drawing up the power play before practice. And he was drawing the power play up, and and I was watching, not understanding, and he didn't complete it. And when it was done, the meeting broke, and he left. And I said, "Hey, Coach, can I ask you a question? For my own edification." I said, "Yeah, JB, what's up?" I said, "I noticed you drew the power play up, but you didn't complete it." He goes, "I know, I did that purposely." He's like, "Because I wanted 87 and 71." He was talking about Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, two superstars. He's like, "I want them to be creative." He's like, "I don't want to put them in a box. So I want them to get to the position I want them to get to and let them do their thing." I was like, aha. What a learning moment for me. So here he is, and he has these 2-star players, but he wanted them to be creative because he knows when they are creative,
things happen.
Yeah. And so I think that's the other thing that we should do. So when you should be a great follower, but when you're as a leader, you shouldn't put people in the box. Let them be creative. Let them decide. Right? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect
sense. And I think,
sense.
And listen, I probably did initially as a leader. You have to do just this, and there are times that you do just that. But there are times that you want these men and women under your charge to develop their own skill set.
So I want to say this to you guys, because I agree, and you said it. When you have a leader who's giving you the freedom to be creative, be creative.
Be creative.
Because I've seen people hesitate.
Right.
I'm like, I'm giving them. I will take the hit if it goes south. Be creative, and some of them they hesitate.
Right.
And so thank you, freaking awesome. So what I found in all this learning, right, is that the attention span of some is not within the hours.
Okay.
So I would like you to leave whatever message, like it can be whatever you want. It can be about COVID. It could be, hey, today is the anniversary of Route 91. It could be, hey, go write a book. What message do you, JB Spisso, consultant, former sergeant major, book writer, right? Awesome, energetic dude. Like this has been amazing, right? What would you tell the folks watching?
Well, these are very unique times, and everybody's stressing about the pandemic, second wave, everything else. I will tell people, keep your joy. Look at the small things. Like today, I was so excited about you coming in today. I really was. I was excited.
Hopefully we didn't let you down.
No. It was wonderful.
All right.
So keep your joy. You are in charge of your joy. Hug your kids. Enjoy the dinner. Whether you're having a cup of coffee, but everything we do, we're so worried about something else. Control what you can control. Keep your joy. Keep your spirit up. Think victory thoughts. Or when you wake up in the morning, think victory thoughts. I'm here. I'm improving. I'm learning. I'm thankful. I'm here. I'm improving. I'm learning. I'm thankful. And that's what I would do. I'll tell people my book is Warrior Leadership. You can find it on my website at jbsleaders.com. If you want to Instagram me, please, I'll DM me. I'll write you back. It's at JB Spisso. I appreciate it. Hope you like the book. If you don't like it, tell me. And if you like it, tell me. And Kevin, I want to tell you thank you for everything. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. And Kicking It with KJ is going to keep climbing the mountain.
I'm trying.
Going to keep climbing.
Thank you.
You're going to be ahead of Joe Rogan. Let's go.
Woo! Watch out, Joe.
That's right.
JB, thank you, sir.
Thank you, buddy. Nice to meet you.